Put on your case and learn the phrase. It's TA with MK. It's TA with MK. Breaking news. This just in. Bitcoin.
The suspense is terrible.
He's gonna go this time.
I hope it'll last.
Runs this market. No, but seriously, this is a concept that not a lot of people quite understand. Like, they should, but maybe if you're new to crypto, you just don't understand yet. But if Bitcoin asks your girl to the prom and she says no, so Bitcoin's having a bad day, what do altcoins do? Or maybe Bitcoin's cruising along, things are going well, then it gets pulled over for going a little too fast, can't pay its fine because he wasn't pulled over in El Salvador, and altcoins go.
I'll never let go. I promise.
I guess all I'm saying is, don't fall in love with these altcoins. Not even Uniswap, although I know she's a 10. Sure, they might look like they're headed for the moon, and in some cases, maybe they eventually will be, or maybe they get close, but then they give 90 to 97% of their gains back and wind up in the bottom of the ocean. And unless you bought the bottom, you're either gave all your gains back or you're in the hole, right? And you're waiting for that next trip to the moon. This is why we trade. We try to avoid holding downtrends, and we wait for the right opportunity to pounce. We're going to discuss a bit of that in today's episode, as well as Bitcoin and maybe where we think it's going next. If you're liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go. Now we're going to mix it up a bit today, and I'm actually going to start out with the Bitcoin dominance chart. Normally I start out with either the S&P 500 or like the Bitcoin daily chart, but I wanted to start out with this one just because I wanted to put an emphasis on this being almost the single most important chart that I'm watching at the moment as it relates to trading altcoins. Now, as I mention every day on my channel, we know that if this is going up, it's generally bad for altcoins, and if it's going down, that's generally good. And we were tracking this large rising channel, red being the top of the zone, green being the bottom, and that was just a series of highs, higher highs. And while this has been trending up ever since late January, that has been bad for altcoins. Altcoins have basically been getting wrecked. Retracing back to historical, support levels and things of that nature. I had been mentioning for some time now, over the last couple weeks really, that if this broke down and bearishly retested and started trending down, that would represent really good altcoin trading. And so far, just like a roadmap that I drew out, it is following to plan. Now the measured move of this breakdown I mentioned is around 41.5%. But I also mentioned in yesterday's video that we never go straight up or straight down. There's going to be impulse waves up, and impulse waves down, impulse waves up, and impulse waves down. So we were in this falling wedge after we broke out of the large rising channel. And I'd mentioned it would make sense for it to break out and maybe retest this zone of previous support, and hopefully now it'll be resistance. And it's almost like it listened to me because it did exactly that, that it retraced back down. So now kind of what we're waiting for is just for this to kind of trickle back down. We want to make sure that this next low it puts in is lower than this low, because right now we basically got a double top on the Bitcoin dominance chart. And what we're looking for now is to get some good altcoin trading potentially as it trends lower. And then we're just looking for maybe to visit this support level down here, something like that. Of course, maybe just a series of this and then this, So for the most part, things are going according to plan. Now I also wanted to clean this chart up and just quickly mention a scenario that could be possible. If this is going to play out maybe a little bit more slowly, what we'd really like to see is this just trend down, in the next day or two, boom, awesome altcoin trading, the support level down here breaks, bearish retest, we just get the altcoin season that we've all been hoping for. But as is the case with, falling wedges, because this was a rising channel or a rising wedge, as is the case with falling wedges, often they can break out and you don't immediately see a push up to here, right? Sometimes they break out and then they just kind of go sideways for a while, eventually creating a large rounded bottom, right? And then after a while, they finally kind of start creating a rising channel on the other side. Eventually it becomes a big rounded bottom. And then you either get a breakout at the top or you get a another retrace. What I'm suggesting is maybe what could happen is this could just turn into a large rounded top, so just the opposite, right? Which could mean something like this. Maybe this retraces back down a little, maybe it pumps back up and goes a little higher than we want, maybe wherever this trend line is at the time that used to be support acts as resistance up here. So this isn't something that's going to happen all at once. It could. I just wanted to put that scenario out there that let's just say, for example, you do Alt-I and invert your chart, so this does look like a falling wedge. It wouldn't be completely out of question for this to kind of just range for a while, creating, support if it's inverted, or resistance, obviously, if it's the other way. And then eventually, we get more of an explosive move this way, or once again, to the downside, further into the future, maybe, sometime in April, potentially. Either way, the most important thing is just to have a plan in place and be able to react. And one of the most important charts that I always bring up as well is the SPX, or the S&P 500. Now, this is the daily chart. I mentioned yesterday that it had this red overhead resistance. It had closed with this red candle, and the 200 simple, which is this yellow moving average, was also acting as resistance. So I said it wouldn't be surprising if it had to consolidate for a bit before a potential breakout, maybe a retrace. Now, it hasn't broken out yet, but we got an awesome move today where it actually pushed through the moving averages, and right now it's just at the kind of the top or middle of this red zone of resistance. Now, for it to actually be a breakout, we need it to break the top of this zone, confirm it as support, and then push higher. But today's move was positive. But it is, I want to say, if we double click and look at some of the indicators, we're oversold definitely on the stochastic on the daily. We do have some room to go on the RSI. MACD still crossed and going up, still a solid green, positive momentum. I guess what we really want to see is this stochastic just to potentially range for a bit up here, like this. Because, the last thing we want to see is for this to come back down and cross into this area. That would represent a pretty big pullback, probably somewhere back down into this green zone, most likely, while it, went down this way. But, to be honest with you, things are looking good. A small pullback of some sort tomorrow would make some sense. I don't know why my voice just squeaked, but anyway, it would make some sense for a little pullback, or maybe consolidation potentially. But it also wouldn't surprise me if we just push up over the next day or two, retest this as support, which would be a support resistance flip of this previous area that was resistance back here, support, a little bit of resistance throughout here, and then just push higher. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And then I guess that leaves us to talk about the elephant in the room. Bitcoin, right? This is the daily chart. Now, on the daily chart, things have been looking good for a while. I shouldn't say a while. Things have actually been looking bad for a while, but recently things have been looking good. We had this top, obviously, back here last year in late November, around Thanksgiving, and then it was just in this long downtrend of a series of highs and lower highs and lower lows, right? But then it finally broke out of the wedge that it was in, and it was able to put in this high here, which was higher than the previous high in the wedge. And since then, it's just putting in lows, higher lows, higher lows. This was a double top up here, but it's making essentially an ascending triangle. Right now, I had mentioned in previous videos that we needed to hold basically 40,300 and flip that as support. We did just that. Bottom of my red zone, we were able to bounce off of. We're kind of pushing above it right now. It's looking to me like we're right at a support resistance flip area. We really do need to hold. I know our daily candle closes here in about an hour, I want to say. Actually, it says right here, hour and 17 minutes. We really need to hold 42K. Really 42.5 is almost more important, but I think just psychologically between like 42 and 42.1 would still be bullish to me, because if we can hold, especially if we can hold 42.5 at the daily close, then I would expect us to push up here to the top of this range, which is between 44 and almost 45K, and at least test up here again over the next day or two, right? And if we can do that, we should get some good altcoin trading potentially as well. And then at that point, we'll just find out, is it going to be able to finally break this area that was resistance once, twice, 3 times? Will it finally break up through that and make a support? Or do we get rejected and trend back here one more time to see if we can put in a higher low? I don't like to predict too far into the future. I just like to have a plan in place and react. especially where right now the Bitcoin is so highly correlated with the S&P 500. We kind of need to wait and see what that does each day to see if it remains bullish. Then we can kind of assume Bitcoin will remain bullish, and then we just take it level by level. And to finish off, I just want to give some quick thoughts on the Bitcoin 1 hour chart. So this is a little more zoomed in. It looks like we're forming this potential rising channel. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 touches on the top, 1, 2, 3 and 4 touches along the bottom. And, so we've just been kind of consolidating in some upward action, higher highs, higher lows. What I'm looking at right now is this little potential bull pennant inside of here. If this breaks lower and confirms, then I could expect that we might come back down here and visit somewhere around like 41,500, maybe even a little lower, 41,400, something like that. And if this breaks higher, then we can go test the top of this potential wedge at around like 43,800. So that's a couple things I'll be watching for. Even more bullish would be if this were to break above this and retest this. Then I'd expect us to maybe go test 45 or 46K. So we'll keep an eye on that. And I think that's enough yapping for today. If you're liking the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow. It's tea.